This session is about creating opportunity and advantage, which is a nice way of saying what Anne Moises, the Chief Information Officer of the Scottish Government, is going to say now, which is things we could do better. Ladies and gentlemen, Anne Moises.
Thank you. Good afternoon, welcome. I'm delighted to be here for the third and final session of today's conference, and for all of you who were here yesterday and have been participating in the full 2 days, I commend your stamina, particularly if you've been taking part in the full programme, which has been incredibly interesting, and the fascinating breakout sessions. I have the joy of being asked to focus on strategies to boost innovation, opportunity and advantage, while considering how ICT can be used to support ambition and create a lasting legacy. Unfortunately, just about everything that I was going to put in around innovation and opportunity has been covered to a very high standard by all the previous speakers. So I spent some time going through this with a red pen, so don't panic about all the pages. Quite a lot of them aren't going to get used. What I've done is I've started with a quote from a chap called William Pollard, who was an English cleric who was born in the 1820s. And I think that this is a sentiment that is as appropriate now as it was back then. I'm going to briefly consider the 5 topics mentioned in the theme for this session. So that will be boosting innovation, boosting opportunity, delivering advantage, supporting ambition, and hopefully creating a lasting legacy, before looking at some of the practical ways and things planned or underway in delivering ICT-enabled change across the public sector. So what are we doing to boost innovation? Well, actually quite a lot of money, as well as thought and efforts going into innovation. If you weren't already aware, the European Commission is pumping significant amounts of funding into a programme called the Horizon 2020. And speaking ahead of the formal launch of the next research framework programme, which starts January 2014, it's been agreed that ICT will be one of the key enabling technologies. And the ICT sector is expected to receive nearly 20% of all Horizon funding. Over the 7-year budget period, Horizon 2020 will inject tens of billions of euros into essential research and innovation. Funding will be available for things such as microelectronics, nanoelectronics, photonics, as well as research into areas such as robotics and e-infrastructures. ICT is also set to benefit from further development of the Institute of Innovation and Technology, where their funding is going to increase from 308 million to around 3 billion. So if we don't manage to make new and innovative ICT work, it certainly won't be for the lack of funding and enthusiasm. All these technologies can be hugely beneficial for many different uses and purposes, but at the same time, they can cause ethical and moral problems. This raises the question of who's responsible for the consequences of such technologies, how responsibilities are translated into practical outcomes, and how the developers of technology can discharge their responsibilities. So, not just technology that we have to worry about, we actually have to worry about what it is we do with it and how we approach the wider implications of what we deliver into society. And that's another area where there's some research and funding going into. The Oxford University's e-Research Centre for Computing and Social Responsibility is setting up a project that's going to look at raising awareness and fostering debate on these concerns, while working to provide guidance on how organisations can best manage the ethical dilemmas that come with the changes that novel technologies and innovation may surface. At a practical level, what that means is the creation of an observatory where scientists will look at the research and innovation and aim to communicate the findings of research across the entire ICT community, and that includes us. So, what about opportunity? How do we boost the opportunities offered by ICT and deliver the advantages that we can? Well, opportunities for information and communication technology to promote intrinsic change are many and diverse, as you've heard over the past 2 days, but we need to know how and where to look for them. At a national level, one of the things that I think we have to do is to look at fully exploiting technology as one of the most powerful levers that Scotland can employ to achieve wholesale productivity gains right across the economy. So this isn't about us using technology for technology's sake. This is us delivering technology change to actually grow our country, boost our economy, and do all the things that Mr. Swinney so eloquently mentioned in his speech yesterday. As you know, the ICT industry employs more than 100,000 people, with over 60,000 working on the supply side, 48% of whom are graduates. I'm not going to repeat Polly Purvis's earlier speech about our opportunities to increase skills, education and motivation in ICT companies, but it is vitally important that the ICT sector, as a part of industry, contributes to the productivity. Currently, ICT contribution is the 5th highest in the UK, much larger than the sectors in West Midlands and South West. So Scotland's actually punching above its weight in this area at the moment. But the potential productivity uplift from ICT over the next 5 to 7 years is predicted to be really high compared to other sectors. So how does innovation provide advantage? Well, trying to find something that nobody else would have mentioned, I've actually found a French study that was published just in March this year, that notes 1 in 3 firms surveyed for a recent report introduced a major innovation in 2012 has the adoption of information and communication technologies as a crucial part in the process and their growth. Some 30% of the companies who responded to that study had rolled out major product innovation in the 12 months prior to the survey, and the reasons they gave for that were the intensity of the firm's use of information and communications technologies. And it's marked that while there may be other things that actually drive innovation in a company, for example, organisational restructuring, the way you actually sit your workforce together, multidisciplinary teams, it appears to be that the more an organisation makes intensive use of ICT, the more innovative it is. The comparison reveals that companies which introduced the largest number of innovations in the 12 months prior to the survey used things such as cloud computing, analytical tools, mobile apps and so on to a greater level of intensity than their competitors. All of this is all very well, and this is all happening, but do we have the ambition to actually do more? Well, Scotland has many positive factors present for the development of world-class technology innovation, driven by the high level of ICT skills we currently have. As a country, we have a rich heritage of innovation that still has currency around the globe. However, there is no question in my mind that there remains a lack of scale in the business base and in the focus, ability and application of the resources that are needed to translate our latent talent into actual outcomes and products, and to compete effectively on a global scale and generate the increased GDP for the Scottish economy. I don't think this is a message you haven't already heard over the past 2 days. And the Digital Public Services Strategy recognises that more does have to be done to build skills, not only in the ICT workforce, but across the public sector workforce more generally, and in citizens themselves, if we are going to deliver our digital-first aspirations. And work has started on this across government and across the sectors you represent. Creation of a lasting legacy. I couldn't not mention the fact that we are intending to build a legacy for the Commonwealth Games, but I've got no intention of speaking about it as I'm followed by Jerry, who's going to give us real-life examples of what he's done on the 2012 Olympics. But the point here is we have to start thinking about delivering a legacy when we actually start a project, not at the end of it. So, what are we going to do? Research thinking to date suggests that ICT is good at helping people do existing things more efficiently, and we've all been part of that process, particularly those of us who work in large organisations and institutions. But there is more to ICT than that, and to create a lasting and positive legacy, we need to look at the power of ICT to do other things. For example, to enable individuals to do things completely differently, to harness the ingenuity of connected millions to create change together. ICT or ICT-enabled change can encourage systemic shifts in the way society itself operates, all of which suggests that ICT could be one of the most powerful enablers of transformation that we have available to us today. But only if we actually work out the outcomes we are intending to deliver and how to make those sustainable before we start our journey or project or programme. There's no single academic study to prove that the principle of high-level ICTs has a direct correlation to technology innovation, but there's actually quite a lot of evidence anecdotally or qualitatively that suggests that there are key factors in ICT enabling innovation and opportunity. Innovation is more prolific, where there's a large pool of science, technology, engineering and maths subject graduates present. Economic productivity is higher when high ICT skill levels are present. If a board has high levels of ICT skills in business, they're actually more likely to release competitive advantage from technical innovation. And as we've heard earlier on today, there's increased recognition that skills, whether you call them ICT or digital, must be embedded in the business community at senior strategic levels in order to create demand for innovative solutions, develop the products and services, and actually turn those into commercial offerings. And it's important that innovation doesn't happen just in small clusters. Small teams working closely together can spark really great ideas. But it's important that we're able then to scale these across industries and within clusters and not just leave them to wither and die or potentially sell them to another country to actually take through and develop at an industrial quality. Innovative companies are already attracted to co-locate with other like-minded companies due to the availability of talent, suppliers, and research and development knowledge. So if we want to do things differently, how are we actually approaching this? Well, there's a number of things that we're looking at already, some of which are falling out of the high-level operating framework, which in itself was an innovation. Colleagues from across the public sector have worked jointly together to create a set of operating principles that are meant to guide our digital ICT developments going forward, all in pursuit of delivering digital first, sustainable change and actually putting the citizens at the heart of what we deliver. So there are some high-level principles and there are some more things that we actually want to do at a very practical level that we're looking to engage with you as ICT professionals in going forward. So first of all, one of the things we're looking at is green. You may be aware that the Global E-Sustainability Initiative, I can't say that, so I'm just going to call it JES, it's much easier, produced a landmark report called Smart 2020 a couple of years ago. It highlighted the ways that ICT can enable greenhouse gas reduction. It looked at all sorts of things, transport, health, innovation, logistics, smart electronics, smart cities, building management, video conferencing, and this is the point where there's a large red score through my speech here because I was going to talk about the Smarter Glasgow project, but I think you've all heard about that already, so I shall move swiftly on. But the point is ICT can be used in intelligent ways to enable very substantial reductions in emissions. But that doesn't mean ICT is an environmental saint. The report also analyses the emissions which directly result from ICT manufactures, usage, and while it's relatively low compared to the enabling effect, it is also ICT that is enabling society to travel faster. Without the ICT, would we have the cheap airlines? Would we have the mass flights? Without very complex and clever electronic, would we be extracting oil from some of the sites that we couldn't reach 20 years ago? So it's up to us to choose the direction where we want to go. If we point in a high carbon direction, ICT will help us increase emissions more quickly. If we choose to go in a low emissions direction, ICT can help us reduce them. One of the other things that we're looking at is data. Over 60% of British adults now access the internet, and issues surrounding information and our online presence and footprint have are becoming increasingly complex. Apparently, almost 30 million people in the UK are signed up for Facebook. At least that was when I looked a couple of days ago. It's probably considerably more now. And they routinely share information about themselves. Added to this, the quantity of data stored in email accounts, online stores and other websites, and it becomes apparent that our digital footprint contains vast amounts of information about us, our personal affairs, and crucially, how we live our lives. The quantity of this information increasingly creating complex issues and questions around the range of information stored, how it's kept, and who has access to it. And legal frameworks are struggling to keep up with the pace of new technologies, and the mapping to our ethical values are unclear. It becomes vital to understand the impact of how all this data is used. Our approach, as laid out in the Digital Public Services Strategy, recognises these issues, and work is starting to take forward strategies, guidance and approaches to how we, as a Scottish public sector, handle these. Going into a bit more detail, why green? I'm probably preaching, well, at least I hope I'm preaching to the converted this afternoon, but ICT accounts for over 2% of global emissions, on a par with the airline industry, and it's growing fast. UK data centres consume 6.4 gigawatts of power annually. That's almost 3% of the UK's total energy consumption. And from a recent UK-level study, 86% of ICT departments do not know the carbon footprint of their activities. So you can see why we really ought to care, and why what we do as IT professionals can have a profound impact on our environment. There's many ways that we can do this better. Digitising business processes, the work we're doing to digitally enable our public services, can often reduce the amount of carbon produced and do the same thing more quickly, cheaply and conveniently for the citizens. But we all need to be aware to minimise the negative effects of what we do. And it just isn't about carbon emissions and energy. Less energy use is less cost to your business, so there's a bottom line for you here too. What we've actually relatively recently done is set up a number of working groups, reporting into the Technical and Design Authority that we're setting up as part of the delivery of the Digital Public Service Strategy, and we are looking at green ICT as part of that. Again, advisory group to be set up, combining public sector and private sector through the industry forum and tapping into the skills of Scotland IS and their members. The intention is, with the green strategy, that it won't concentrate just on improving IT, but in transforming business to be greener using IT. And that means having a look again at the design and management of our systems and, crucially, improving awareness of the art of the possible here. So you can see from the slide, technology is only one factor of what we can do to improve our green credentials. We need to exploit collaboration tools, and that's the obvious things like audio, video, web conferencing services, and mobile working technologies to avoid unnecessary travel. Digital First, as an aspiration, will exploit the technologies to drive public services online and so deliver green benefits. But in reality, the types of things that organisations are already doing, including all sorts of things, from removing waste paper processes to rationalising their printing, to moving to the cloud, to working in smarter buildings. So the proposed approach to our green strategy is on two parts. First part, on the same principles, a high-level operating framework, looking with embedding green principles into not only ICT infrastructure, but also the whole life cycle. So procurement standards via government buying standards, and there are already examples at UK level of departments doing this. So for example, DEFRA have done quite a lot of work in designing systems to make it easier for government buyers to buy sustainably. We look at things like how we buy our desktops, monitors, printers, and the intention is that we will develop standards that will help you do this in a green and sustainable manner. There's already an EU Code of Conduct for data centres, which is currently a voluntary framework of measures to drive data centre energy efficiency. We are looking at data centres in a more holistic way, and I'm sorry, but there's yet another advisory group being set up to take that forward. Conscious of the fact I keep talking about advisory groups. Advisory groups aren't set up just to talk about stuff. It's actually intended to deliver sets of guidance and principles that will make it easier for you to do business in the future and for us collectively to deliver on the aspirations of the Digital Public Services Strategy. So the second part of the strategy, we think, will look at the enable and transformative value of ICT to reduce greenhouse gases and other emission-intense areas, for example, server rooms, chillers, down to people's behaviour. How do we actually get people to unplug things? How do we get them to make use of the power management that's already there? So it's not just about producing a strategy, it's about creating a way of doing things and embedding that through the entire life cycle of everything we deliver digitally or through ICT. The other area that we're very keen to do more and do better in is around open source and open standards. Once again, work has already started in that. The Scottish Government does have an open source strategy. It was published some time ago, and you will work quite hard to find it somewhere on the website, but it's there. We need to refresh that. And we're working with colleagues, again, across different sectors and across industry to actually refresh this and make it fit for purpose for you today. The cross-sectoral and industry group will revisit it. We will look not just at open source, but critically at open standards. And open standards not just for things we develop, but open standards for things that our supplier community develops on our behalf. Again, relatively early days in this, but there's a lot of very good practice out there, and we are quite happy to pinch anybody else's good ideas. So, I started this session with a quote, and I'm ending it with a quote, this time from Albert Einstein. And it takes us back to the whole ethos of opportunity, advantage, and sustainability. And this one I will read out. Out of clutter, find simplicity. We live in a very cluttered world. There are more and more initiatives hitting us daily, and it's part of our job to actually help our organisations and our citizens navigate their way through that. From discord, find harmony. And in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. It's up to us to actually identify the simplicity, create the harmony amongst ourselves, and deliver on the opportunities that very definitely are in front of us at the moment. So thank you for your time.